Welcome to Morning Mindset, a daily dose of practical wit and wisdom with a professional educator and trainer, Amazon best-selling author, United States Marine, television and radio host, Paul G. Markle. Each episode will focus on positive and productive ways to strengthen your mindset and help you improve your relationships, career goals, and overall well-being. Please welcome your host, Paul G. Markle.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another Morning Mindset podcast. This is your host, Paul Markle. In case you didn't know, you should know by now. If you're brand new to the show, thank you very much for showing up. Thank you very much for sharing this and telling other people about it. What are we going to talk about today? Well, I'm going to tell you, I've got a lot of P's to drop on you. Prepared people do not panic. Yes, indeed. Prepared people don't panic. And I think what we're witnessing and what we have witnessed in the United States of America and worldwide, but specifically here in the USA, is those who are not prepared demonstrating that they are and have indeed panicked. And how do we avoid that? And what is a good way to avoid it? I've been talking about this for many years. Back when we used to live on the Gulf Coast of Mississippi in Hurricane Alley, we used to talk about it all the time, about being prepared, and how when a hurricane was off the coast, the closer it got, the more nervous people would get, and they would start panic buying blank, panic buying bread and milk and bottled water and all this stuff that they would start panic buying. And I said, look, that's going to happen. It's always going to happen, but what you can do is you can make the personal decision to not participate in that. And how do you do that? Well, you do that by being a prepared individual. Now, being a prepared individual requires responsibility on your part. And sometimes it's difficult. Sometimes you might have to forego something that you really, really wanted. Or maybe you might have to take a little bit of your money and direct it in a different, redirect it to something else. You're like, oh, we really wanted to go here and I wanted to spend money on this, but instead I'm going to buy, fill in the blank. I'm going to buy a gasoline-powered generator, or I'm going to buy a large chest freezer, or we're going to set aside whatever, so that we can be prepared individuals. Now, being prepared isn't always about hurricanes and things like that. Sometimes being prepared is just having the knowledge to take care of business. For instance, how many of you guys learned when you were probably in junior high or 8th grade or something like that, CPR and the Heimlich maneuver, right? Good things to know. Basic, fundamental first aid type stuff. And if you've ever been in a position where where they needed the Heimlich maneuver or they needed CPR, and there was a person there, maybe it was you, that knew what to do, that person wasn't panicking. See, if you don't know what to do, if you're struck like lightning out of the blue and there you are like a deer in the headlights, that's when people panic. People who have education and training, when they encounter an emergency, such as a choking victim or someone having a heart attack or what have you, they're less likely to panic because they know what to do. They have something. Quite often what happens in an emergency is unprepared people who've never taken the time to get training or education, they just panic. They run around screaming, or they take pictures with their phone, they turn their phones on or whatever. They don't know what to do. They're no good. Panicked people are no good to society. They're no good to the community. They're no good they're pretty much useless individuals. Can we admit that? And you're like, oh, that's really rough. The world is a rough place. Welcome to it. If this is your first day on planet Earth, welcome to planet Earth. And it's a rough place. And the fact of the matter is when people panic, they essentially make themselves a burden on society instead of a blessing on society. We've had a bunch of discussions recently. I guess it wasn't recently. I did the blessings podcast. I did that episode before I had to go away and deal with cancer and come back. But the fact of the matter is you can make the decision every day Every day when you wake up, you can make the decision to be either a burden or a blessing. And you're like, nobody makes a decision to be a burden, Paul. That's not nice. Well, as many decisions are made through inaction as they are through action. I want you to think about that for a second. You know, what did Rush say? What did Neil Peart write in one of his many lyrics for Rush? If you choose not to decide, you still have made a choice. And I will tell you this. Many decisions are made through inaction, through apathy. You say, well, no one decides to be the victim of a crisis. No one decides to be a panicked individual. Well, sometimes you do. Everyone in the United States has the same opportunities. And now you might not have the same disposable income, but you have the same opportunities. And not everyone takes advantage of those opportunities. When it comes to the crisis situations, such as a disaster, a hurricane, a tornado, a pandemic, you could you had the choice to be a prepared individual because you had years and years to prepare yourself and your family, and you either did it or you didn't. Now, if you did not prepare yourself and your family, and I'm going to assume the vast majority of my audience did because, well, you're my audience, and I would expect better of you, or I expect good things from you. But if you did not prepare, you say, well, that wasn't a conscious decision. Actually, it was. It was a decision not to do something. How many times have you had the opportunity to go to a medical training class, a traumatic injury training class? Maybe it's just a local American Red Cross family first aid, CPR, and Heimlich class. And it's at the community center near you, right? You could have gone. You had the opportunity to go. It wasn't expensive. I can tell you, as somebody who used to be an American Red Cross family and first aid, CPR, and Heimlich trainer, and I was one of those, I can tell you that the classes aren't expensive. And most of the time they're free, and if they're not free, they're really cheap, $25 or $30. Basically, it covers the cost of the coffee and the donuts that get put out, or it covers the cost of renting the YMCA or the community center room or what have you. They're not expensive. The greatest investment actually is time. And there are people out there, there are many people out there that will not even do that. They won't even invest their time to get the training to save a life. And you say, well, that wasn't a purposeful decision to be unprepared. Yes, actually it was. Prepared people don't panic. And there are lots of ways for you and your family to be prepared people. You can purchase things. Yes, it's good to have stuff. Obviously, you have to have water. Your family has to have water to drink. Your family has to have food to eat. Your family has to have shelter to keep them warm and, out of the elements and so forth. Your family has to have tools available to defend themselves. But you also need some education. You need some training. Like I said previously, with the emergency situation, with the medical emergency situation, you're far more likely to be a blessing if you come across a medical emergency and you actually know what to do. If you don't know what to do, that is when people panic. That is why military personnel, especially infantrymen, especially United States Marines, that's why they train so diligently. That is why they train and 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 they keep training, and they train to the point where the individual infantryman's like, you know what, we got it, we understand, we don't need to do this anymore, we all get it. The reason they do that is because they someday are going to be put into the most traumatic situation that a human being could ever be put in, and that's physical combat. And when they get put into physical combat, if they are well trained, that means they're prepared and they don't panic. They do what needs to be done. They take care of the problem and they move on with their lives. So the big question, and I ask you guys a lot of questions. It's kind of like a little mini homework assignment every day. You're like, daggum, Paul, you're always giving me homework. Yeah, I am. That's why you came here. Are you a prepared individual? Are you as prepared as you could be? Only you can answer that question. Look yourself in the mirror and ask yourself that question. Am I as prepared as I could be, or could I be doing more? Could I be getting more training? Could I be getting more education? I don't know. You tell me. Remember this, though. Prepared people don't panic. And I want you, as my listening audience, to be one of those prepared people. All right, ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for following the show, for supporting the show, and I know earlier in the week I screwed up my days. I thought it was Monday and it was Tuesday, and I think this show is going to go up on Friday. Believe it or not, I don't record these every single one of these the exact day that it's going to go out, because that wouldn't be very efficient. And I'm not getting up at 3 o'clock in the morning so that you can have it at 6 a.m. Sorry. I love you, but I don't love you that much. All right, folks. I am your host, Paul Markle, and I will talk to you again real soon.
Thank you for spending time with us today. To get show notes, submit a topic request, and for more from your host, Paul G. Markle, visit morningmindsetpodcast.com. That's morningmindsetpodcast.com. Please leave a review for this podcast on your favorite podcast player. We appreciate your time and effort, and we look forward to reading your honest feedback.